Peace, love, light, and life to everybody tuning in. Welcome, 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 and welcome again to the Thoughts of an Empath podcast. It's your host, Steve Saintville. It's a blessing and an honor to be here with y'all as always. It's a special day, ladies and gentlemen. I got a very special guest here to help me have my first podcast episode with a guest speaker.
I'm honored, actually. Very.
The honor's all mine, for real. A dope soul, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself.
This is your girl, God Body Naughty. It's so crazy because introducing myself has always been a weird thing, but we've been talking about doing a podcast together for how long?
Long time.
And we're finally here.
And we finally
And
made
just to add, we didn't plan this color coordination thing.
it. Nah, yeah,
So-
at all. It's just a connection. You know what I'm saying? The spirits is guiding.
We're just so you know.
So, today's episode is titled The Masculine and the Feminine, Exploring the Truth of Our Polarities. And I felt it was a very important topic to have because when I go on social media, I've been noticing the conversations lately have been around the masculine and the feminine, what it's supposed to look like, who's submitting, who's leading. And to me, I'm not going to hold you, it sounds like a whole bunch of chatter.
Weird.
Sounds like a whole bunch of chatter.
I completely agree.
And I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what the masculine really is or understand what the feminine really is and how we embody, in my opinion, both.
Right.
And so it was a perfect fit for me to bring you on. I definitely, again, I thank you for coming out. And so the first thing I want to bring up is, to you, what does the masculine, what does the feminine look like? Like, how would you define it? How would you express it in your own ways, in your own words?
So typically, along the way of learning what that kind of like looks like for myself, I always envision the yin yang symbol, right? Like you see the black and the white, you see the two polarities, but you never see them separate from one another. So the masculine is typically supposed to be energetically logical, more action oriented, focused, in control. It represents clarity and stuff like that. Where the feminine energy is more receptive, creative, authentic, whatever the case may be. It kind of just depends on what you're talking about, and it makes it easier to kind of like break down.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we talk about this all the time, where I feel like traditionally we're told that we're supposed to be one or the other based on the genitals that we were born with.
Yeah.
When I feel like we're supposed to embody and cultivate both energies within ourselves, and that's what makes you a whole powerful human being. And I think a lot of people don't view it in that way, so we end up finding ourselves in these power struggles. And I think a lot of the stuff that we've seen on social media is just that. It's a power
exactly
struggle,
what it is.
and people trying to argue their way towards being the more dominant, or, So, what about you?
Nah, that's I love that definition. That's dope because, like, as I've been exploring my own like polarities, my own masculinity, my own femininity, like kind of getting to that definition has been its own journey, truthfully. And for me, I know that even though I was born a man, I understand that my polarity was slightly more feminine. So like I usually led with emotions. I usually led with the creativity, the
That's
love
interesting because I
aspect.
feel like I've always been over dominant in my masculine.
And so like that's a whole, just kind of getting to a level where I'm comfortable with that has been a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. So, but getting to a place where I'm at now, understanding for me, the definition is being like with the feminine being more led by emotions, that love, that creativity, and then the masculine being, more practical thinking, problem solving, things of that nature. It was me kind of reflecting on my own journey and like even building up my masculine. Like that helped me get a more fine-tuned understanding of what it looked like, because as a man kind of growing up in the male culture that we have right now, if you're not overly masculine, they kind of look at you as like prey, or like you're weak, or for being feminine. And I know a lot of men, like they kind of cringe at the thought of being feminine.
Right.
But I felt like it was important, especially when we see these power struggles on social media, for us to understand that, like, for me personally, to recognize that there has to be some sort of learning. There has to be some sort of study and understanding of what these polarities mean, what these energies mean. And so just going through it, like coming up with my own definition and then being able to embody it in myself, I've come to a place where I'm at peace and I feel much better. And that's why I feel the conversations sound like chatter to me.
Right.
Because, yeah, it's just chatter.
So what do you think are the things that help for you to cultivate a little more of your masculine, or to like sharpen it for yourself?
Being more oriented, like setting those goals, and then but being willing to reflect on myself, like, yo, am I doing what I need to be doing in order to achieve these goals? But in that same spirit of embodying both, I don't want to lose my feminine in that space, because the feminine allows me to check in with myself and be like, is this okay? Like, does this resonate with me? Does this make my heart feel happy? Kind of thing. So even in those moments where I'm channeling my masculine energy, like, okay, I know I got to do this. I got to plan for this. I got to get this done. I'm still connected to my feminine in the space where I can still channel those emotions and then use that emotion as fuel into whatever I'm doing.
Right.
Like, whether it be music, whether it be, just work, cleaning up chores around the crib kind of thing. Like, I think there's always a space for us to implement these things into us.
So I'm curious. So like, where do you feel, or how do you feel like you were received in comparison to you just over operating in your feminine versus when you started to cultivate more of that masculine? Whether it's both by your counterparts, like male counterparts, or just like in dating, however, where do you feel like you've seen like a big difference?
As far as like when I move in a masculine space as opposed to a feminine space?
However you feel like you've seen like a major difference between the two, like the before and after kind of thing.
Yeah. When I was more moving solely in a feminine space, like more so when I was younger, coming up and things like that, it was this, like, the position I played, like I felt on, just reflecting on myself, was like the easy prey kind of thing, where like I wasn't the decision maker. I wasn't the one, deciding what to do. I was just kind of the one to go along with whatever was put out in front. Yeah, I was very receptive in that space. And because of that, people, men and women around me, it kind of brought out their dominant side. And so what they would do is kind of like tend to dominate over me. Right. And that was not fun, of course. Sure. It wasn't fun. It wasn't healthy. But it did create this context where people just felt like it was easy to just do whatever they wanted to me. Right. And it wasn't until that, hey, I had to start learning, like pulling back my feminine and start embodying the masculine, where it's just like, that's where I feel like those boundaries started to come in. When because it's like, practically speaking, how do you stop somebody from stepping on you? You don't let them step on you, period. Like, you set your rules and you enforce them,
period.
Facts.
Right.
So that's like, that was one of the biggest changes that I noticed as I started to become more comfortable with my masculine. Right. Like, people didn't feel that natural inclination to just feel like they could say whatever they can say to me and get away with it. And it's like, nah, okay, he's moving in this type of way. Let me respect the way he's moving. So that's how it showed in me. I do want to ask you, how do you feel you express your feminine in the best ways, and how do you feel you express your masculine in the best ways? So
my masculine, for the most part, has always been the more dominant one. And it's, as a woman, it's a little tricky kind of figuring out when you're supposed to present yourself with one or the other, But my masculine comes out more when it comes to being goal-oriented and being about that action, and always being so go with being ambitious and stuff like that. And it's crazy because growing up, like, a lot of the activities and sports that I was into, like, I went to junior police academies, I did martial arts, we were going to the gun range for fun. Jeez. My first real job for a very long time before even going into the cosmetology industry was security. So it's like, I was always the one girl or the few amongst a whole bunch of men.
Yeah.
So that was just my normal natural habitat. And it wasn't until like I started going into the beauty industry where I was being forced to be like in female dominated industries, now with pole as well.
Yeah.
And in the beginning it was like, bro, I can't do this. I do not like being around a whole bunch of, and I still feel that way sometimes. Because, you know, it's kind of one of those things where like men, they have a way of like, you know, you can have the chatter and the debates or whatever, but when it's time to get the shit done and it's time, like, you know, to, you know, come together, the job gets done ultimately at the end of the day. With women, it's just this whole thing with the egos and clashing and the emotions. Sometimes it's a little too much for me, but I'm grateful to be put into those spaces to kind of even allow for me to see what feminine energy even looks like. So I think transitioning from one thing to another kind of helped for me to learn what it is to be more receptive and to not always feel the need to perform and go and compete, you know? And having like a lot of female clients allow for me to create spaces for not only myself but for other people, and to hold space for other people and their emotions and stuff like that, because I kind of played like a therapist even before that. I was always a therapist friend, so it's tricky when sometimes you don't even realize when you're flipping that switch. But I think it's kind of tricky to even know like when you're flipping that switch or whatever the case may be. And especially when I started getting into pole, that's when I really started exploring like the eroticism, or even getting into a space of truly feeling myself and being present within my body and loving myself unapologetically and all of that stuff. So
pole helped out with that aspect.
Yeah, to dive a little deeper into that.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Nice. How long you been doing pole now?
It's like a year and some change.
What do you feel was the inspiration that drew you to it?
So it's funny because when I was younger, actually it ties into all of this. When I was younger, I was definitely that kid that every time I saw something, I wanted to do it, right? The drum line came out, I started playing the drums.
Really?
Bring It On came out, I started cheerleading, you know? So actually what got me into martial arts was The Last Dragon.
Really?
Fun fact, right?
Wow.
So there was a point where my parents were like, look, we know that you want to do all of these things. We know that you want to do martial arts, you want to do gymnastics, you want to dance, but we can't pay for all of it. So you're going to have to pick one. I guess since I was in a more tomboyish space, I went with martial arts. Took it all the way, got my black belt, boom. But there was still a part of me that would always look back and wonder, what if? Like, what if I did do the gymnastics and the dance? And then at some point I had to stop making the excuse that it was too late or that I was too old. And I figured pole was the adult version of that. So pole is my way of honoring my inner child.
I love that.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Nah, that's fire.
Yeah, so that's how it all came to be.
That's
and
beautiful.
Little did I know how like life changing it would be, or how
Wow.
profound it would be as far as like my spiritual journey and just growth and all of that.
And I love how you tied in that relationship with your inner child. And like that's so powerful. Like that's such an important thing as far as just living.
Yeah. From the outside looking in, people are like, are you a stripper? Like, you know, what made you want to? But it's heavily tied into my inner child because there was a part of me that still wanted to jump around and dance and do cartwheels and flips and tricks and stuff. So literally, that's
This was
like
the perfect,
one of my ways
the
of
perfect
honoring
medium.
my inner child.
That's beautiful. That's
Thank you.
beautiful. Let's clap it up for that. Let's clap it up for that. Wow. So shifting to the social media power struggle, where do you feel we're missing the mark in the conversation?
I feel like the power struggles don't have us realizing that over time we've been more so dating and attracting from our ego and not our souls. So I feel like we miss the mark when it comes to the fact that if we're talking about relationships and dynamics, this means we're supposed to be coming together. But why are we debating each other and arguing and trying to fight over who's supposed to be dominating and taking over and who's supposed to be sitting on the throne with their crown versus the other person serving them, you know? In my mind, aren't we both supposed to be sitting at the crown and taking turns, taking care of one another? And I think that's where we missed the mark. So it's crazy to just watch, you know, the dating pool and how it's so transactional at this point.
It really is.
It's all like, give me money, pay for this, but give me ass, but what do you bring to the table? And it's kind of like, okay, so when do we get to the part of being real and vulnerable with ourselves when it comes to the fact that at the end of the day, even if you don't want to admit to it or be vulnerable and say the truth, we all just want love and somebody to love us for who we truly are.
Yeah.
So
We all want the same thing.
I really think that that's the major part that we're just not even acknowledging.
Jeez. And I agree, OD. And it's so tough to see. Because I feel like if we just listen, something as simple as listening can start to like pave that way towards the reconciliation.
And not to respond, but like actually to self-reflect on, okay, what am I not doing? Or what am I not seeing? But
yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult. And I also like the point you made up where, well, you brought up where you said, aren't we both on the throne? As far as like, shouldn't we both be serving each other? And in that service, someone's serving and someone's being served. So it's like, it is confusing to think of how we've now made that political in a sense, where it's just like, okay, I always got to be the one that's being served.
right.
You know, so.
But I think just generally, so it's like, if you don't have a sense of self, sense of accountability, how can you truly come together and have a harmonious dynamic or relationship? It takes two to tango, right?
Yeah.
And I think however we're gonna start talking about men and women and their faults or like what they could do better, it's the fact that everybody needs to be self-accountable. And I feel like I chant this all the time. Everybody needs to be self-accountable, because until you do that with yourself, you have no business pointing the finger at somebody else.
That's true. That's 100.
So where you want to start?
I do want to dive into like, the men and women aspect. And I do want to actually get both of our perspectives of both sides.
Right.
So which one would you want to like?
Let's start with men first.
Okay, let's start with the men. The fellas, have patient ears. Be very patient. We about to get some game. So make sure you got your notepads out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we got the green on, so we promise to be loving and empathetic in the process.
Of course, always the thoughts of an empath podcast, of course. So with men, I know men are usually the ones who feel like we must be served. We always feel like we must be the aggressors. We must be the dominant one. Just to open it up, where do you feel like, we trip ourselves up, or where do you think we struggle in the understanding of ourselves?
I would say that I empathize with the fact that I know that society plays a big part as to how men even view masculinity and how they think they're supposed to show up in the world.
See, this is
and
why
I think
she's the perfect one.
Yeah. And I think that causes men in general to have such a distorted view of not only themselves and how they're supposed to show up, but what a relationship is supposed to look like, and the roles and dynamics between both people. But I think a lot of times, and you'll see this for yourself, that when somebody represents divine masculinity, and that means they've already balanced it, they've done the work, you don't have to argue, you don't have to debate, you don't even have to say anything. Just your presence when you walk through the room is going to make that flip switch within a woman to automatically just be receptive to you. It's the fact that a lot of us are debating and arguing that, you owe me this and I deserve this because I was born with whatever between my legs. It's kind of like, no, that's not how it works. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where just because you make a certain amount of money, or just because you're good looking and a lot of women flock to you based off like the external, that doesn't mean that you're owed any type of submission or anything like that. So I think a lot of times that's the stuff that has me like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah. And it's a huge cultural thing.
That too.
Like, it's huge culturally. Our families coming from the islands. Like, that's a huge kind of like structure of the family, where it's like, I know I seen a lot of time growing up where with my parents, dad comes home from work, and mom come home from work too. But then after she get home from work, she got to cook, she got to take care of everything.
Yeah, that's when we start going into the feminine.
It's like, that's where it's like that's always been a structure. Like, just structurally, like, yo, okay, when a woman gets home or when a man gets home, everything's got to just be prepared for him. Everything's got to be ready for him. But one thing I didn't see, truthfully, is my dad assisting with that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, again, from a cultural standpoint, I can understand where it's like guys, young men see that and they feel like, okay, that's what it's supposed to be like. You know what I'm saying? I think I was just in a very unique position because I was the youngest son, and my sister's 10 years younger than me, so she wasn't around for a lot of the time. So I was the one that ended up helping my mom with a lot of like the housework and stuff like that. So I think I got a unique perspective where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm a guy, but this is housework is shit that I can do too. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and over time, it became, for me, it was just like a thing where it's just like, well, why can't men do these things? Like, I think it makes me better that I know that how to fucking maintain a house and still now cultivating the masculine skills of going out into the world and doing all these things. So the cultural implications run very deep, very, very deep. And like you said, it's how society conditions us, and this is stuff that's been going on for generations on generations.
And granted, I feel like they did the best with the tools that they were given.
Absolutely.
But we're living in a completely different world. A lot of us can't afford to be the stay-at-home mom, and then the guy's making enough to take care of everything. You know what I'm saying? So we have to adapt. Do what we've been doing, you know what I'm saying, as human beings. You just shift with the times. And once again, the conversations need to be had to be able to find what that now looks like in today's society, because I feel like going into the age of Aquarius, we could get into the zodiacs a little bit.
Don't be shy.
Yeah,
we can do that.
We're living in a completely new world, and the people who are like trying to grip so tightly to the old paradigms, they're the ones that are really suffering. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, what do we have to do now to make shit shake and to really create a harmonious family that a lot of us didn't see growing up, you know? And it's kind of one of those things where everybody has that thought in the back of their minds. It's like, you know what, when I do have a family or when I do come together with somebody else, I want it to be, you know, something that I've never had before, better than what I, you know, but you can't do that still holding on to those old mindsets and, you know what I'm saying, belief systems. So.
So a lot of unlearning, you would say, is like,
for sure,
definitely needed. I could definitely co-sign that. I could definitely vouch for that. Yeah.
But what I was saying though, how like culturally, especially coming from the islands, I'm starting to realize more and more that we have this whole narcissistic martyr kind of dynamic that kind of like lurks, and you know, you'll see it in some places more than others. But it's almost like when we would watch those movies and you would always see like the bad guy and the good girl or whatever the case may be. It's kind of like, so like that starts to like, that starts to seep into our psyche when it comes to the fact where, like, you know, even the whole thing cheating, like it's when I've heard so many men say like, guys are going to cheat regardless, y'all just got to get with it, you know what I'm saying? Y'all just gotta get with it, and almost like. For
the record, I've never said that.
I know you've heard. I know you.
I definitely have. I have.
So like, even in the households where you've seen, you know, probably like the fathers or the men in a family having a little more narcissistic tendencies, and the moms having more like martyr tendencies, where it's kind of like, even if you complain about his behaviors, you're still enabling them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you feel that what a woman is take care of everything, and I have to have everything cooked, and I have to have everything clean. I've seen that a lot in my family, you know, being an islander. So, I mean, I don't know what it looks like in everybody else's families, but the people around me, I'm like, I'm starting to notice a pattern in the theme here. So I think a lot of it, there's levels and layers to all of it.
Yeah. And I definitely see that, empathize with that on a personal level, like within my own family structure as well. Like, especially whenever me and my dad would get into it, it was always my mom. She would do everything in her power to just try to keep the peace and like, oh my gosh, don't. She would always come to me like, yo, don't fight back. Don't. You know how he is, kind of stuff. And in my head, it's just like.
But is that really gonna bring change? Yeah, is that really gonna stop anything? But here's the thing, So now I feel like when you actually see those videos where the girls, like, what did the girl say? She said, we don't give a damn about your hopes and dreams. We just. I feel like those women are coming from a place where they feel as though fighting back or being combative or whatever the case may be is going to get them somewhere. But like I said, are you dating and attracting from your ego or your soul? Because that's coming from a more trauma response place as opposed to, okay, where's that going to get you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because like I said before, everybody's so comfortable with exposing their bodies to one another and then being so super reserved and selfish with their energy. And it's kind of like, to me, how does that make sense? How does that make sense? Like, to me, I feel like even sex has become, for the most part, so stale, because if you're not willing to bring that passion, that transparency, and that connection into it, then what are we really doing? You're using somebody else to masturbate. Pero.
Period.
Pero. But yeah.
Damn, that's real. Shit, you were going. I was just listening. I'm not gonna hold you. I was just.
No, it's because I feel like there's so much to touch on that it's like I don't even want to go down full blown rabbit holes because I feel like there's so much to cover. But like, where do you start? You know?
Yeah. But there is an essence that, like, the divine feminine comes in, like the woman that's not combative, like the way she is, like the woman that has balance herself. She can speak sternly, but in such a soft, soothing way that it's like, yo, I got you.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because it's so rare on both sides, I will admit. But when I've actually seen it in action, I'm like, yo, you really don't have to both sides. You really don't have to combat. You really don't have to fight. It's literally, especially the divine feminine, I've seen where she just simply asks for what she wants. You know what I'm saying? She comes with compassion and empathy, and she speaks to you a certain way, and she's holding that space, and she's making you feel like, you know?
Yeah.
And literally, men melt. What else do you need? How else do you need to serve
fact.
you? Like, you know?
That's a
and
fact.
I think even seeing examples of that is like, okay, I could, you know, soften it up a little bit and work on that within myself. So it's definitely true. But yeah, I feel like we're not getting anywhere combating and fighting one another, and it gives me a headache even just watching it. But it's so common.
Yeah. It seems like it's getting worse too, to be honest. And so questions like in that, asking too, you know, a woman, do you feel like embracing your masculine now? I feel like it does, but like, what does it look like when a woman embraces her masculine and then like implements that into her divine feminine, if that makes sense?
So I think it's interesting because as I'm working on it, I think I come off way more intimidating, you know, as opposed to just over operating in my masculine. So like, let's say when I was over operating in my masculine, I feel like obviously I'm not being as receptive as a divine feminine would be. So guys may want me for my body or may see me and, you know, want to have a little fun night or whatever the case may be, but they didn't want to deal with me because to them, even if I wasn't being combative, the fact that I was just so assertive and strong was just like, nah, I don't want that, whatever.
Yeah.
And now coming into a place where I have more of a balance, I'm starting to notice where men won't even bother trying or getting in my way because they feel like they can't keep up or even like they have nothing to offer me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you bring a type of pressure.
Yeah.
Spiritually. Energetically.
And it's another thing because it's crazy. Like, I may be in a place where I'm receptive and I'm able to hold space and come together with somebody else, but then it becomes a mirror to other people and it forces them to like, damn, I do usually play games with girls, but I can't really do that with her. I ain't shit. Like, it starts to make them reflect.
Yeah.
And now it becomes one of those things where it's like, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother you. I'm gonna just fall off. I may not admit that to you out loud. I may not say it, but I start to see the patterns of like that, how I'm here for you, whatever you need, but I'm just gonna stay out your way. You know? But for people who are more receptive and ready for something like that, it's super healing because I don't think too many people experience spaces where they can just unravel and get naked, like proverbially, right? You know? So it's kind of one of those things where I've been able to kind of develop deeper bonds and relationships with other people just by being not only a safe space to myself, but a safe space to others. But yeah, before when I was over operating in my masculine, I wasn't as receptive, so I shut a lot of people out, and I was very like to myself, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I guess it just depends on the situation, because like I said, sometimes it's a little tricky knowing when to flip what switch or when to kind of like present one more than the other.
Yeah.
I've seen like a major difference when it comes to how people receive me or react to me.
Very, very interesting. I love the insight. I'm loving it. And I'm just like, just reflecting over just even my experience. As
I was going to say, like, how do you feel like women receive you?
I mean, I say this in the humblest way possible. I promise you,
Talk
I
your
do.
shit. Talk your shit.
But it's like the women that I have come across, like they see me as so rare because it's like he's so in tune with his emotions, but he's so confident about himself.
Yeah.
In a way where it's just like when he just talks, it's like, and unfortunately, it works out bad for me in the dating space. Because I feel like sometimes women put me on pedestals. And I don't like that. I want to be human. I want to be able to just be naked. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have to fit into any facade. So recently in my dating like realm, it's been hard for me to kind of connect with someone on that level, because I'm recognizing that, again, in the humblest way, I'm saying like, it's just, I've done so much for myself, and it emanates on the outside that it like attracts people, of course. But then when I hold you accountable to do that same thing for yourself,
that's where we struggle.
And it's
that's
like,
where we struggle.
I'm not gonna do it for you.
Yeah.
Because that's way too much weight on me. And so that's been my experience as far as like dealing coming across women, whether I'm approaching them in that type of space or not. Like even with just female friends, it's like kind of they just see me as like this all-knowing figure. It's like, okay, he's got the answers and stuff like that.
You know what? Now that you say that, it makes me think, because I feel like from my perspective, when I just described it, I feel like, let's talk about men, because you know I have my options, whatever the case may be. But men specifically, they do that whole thing where they kind of just like stay out of my way and kind of like recluse, you know, whatever the case may be, because they don't want to be that vulnerable to admit maybe, you know, we're not on the same page, or maybe I'm not in your league, or whatever the case may be. But then for you, it's more one of those things where a lot of women have this complex where like they're waiting for somebody to come save them. so,
and I look like Superman. It's like, but no.
but no. So no, I think that's a very interesting contrast.
Yeah.
Regardless, I feel like there's a lot of, is it being empathetic, or just having more so of that balance where you do end up attracting a lot of broken people, or people who maybe don't know or feel that they need fixing. And I feel like on the other end too, those are the things that help for us to sharpen our swords when it comes to finding a better balance and knowing where to set boundaries and how to kind of like show up. But you know. At some point, when do I get my certificate of, you know what I'm saying, of completion?
Yeah. Jeez. It's just a hard space to navigate. Just
within what, dating?
With that, yeah, definitely too. Like, it's.
I said earlier the dating pool is contaminated. So.
Yes, and it's like, where's the vision? Like, what do people really want at this point? Like, what do you really want, and is what you're doing gonna get you to where you want?
Well, if we're talking about dating, it seems like a lot of people's goals is to self-serve.
And then just essentially have like a servant to help with that kind of thing.
And you know what? Sometimes I don't think it's always so conscious. I think, because like it goes back to the whole thing: are you dating from your ego, or are you dating from your soul?
Yeah.
Your ego is always going to find ways to protect itself.
Mm-hmm.
So even if your representative is the one out here saying like, oh, you need to have this amount of money, you need to drive this car, for whatever reason you feel like that is going to soothe or boost or protect your ego. But the more we're sitting here worried about feeding our ego, we're starving our souls. And that's what we're swimming in. That's what we're swimming in. Just trying to find the light to see if there's anybody else who's even remotely close to being like us or wanting what we want, you know? So it's definitely difficult to navigate, but I have faith.
Yeah.
That some way, somehow.
One day over the rainbow. Nah, yeah. I have faith too, though.
No, yeah.
I definitely will say that.
There's the internal thing where it's kind of like, all right, don't give up.
Yeah.
Everything is happening for you, not to you.
Yeah.
You know, that whole thing. But
jeez.
what else you want to dive into?
Right, we did a good job. I kind of just want to open it up. I don't even.
I feel like I wish we had questions. Like, what you want to know? What you want to
like
ask?
for real. Has there been anything that has been upsetting you in a general space, that thing that you recognize when you go outside or when you just kind of in your own space?
There's a lot that bothers me. I think the fact that the common thing or the trend is also superficial. And the more that I just want to, first of all, that makes me become more of a hermit because I don't even want to be in the same spaces as the people who are more concerned about the clothes and the jewelry and the cars and whatever the case may be.
Yeah, we don't do shallow water.
Yeah, it kind of puts me in a space sometimes where I'm like longing for home. Like, where's my tribe? You know, where are the people who think like me? Who, you know? And it's so interesting because it's put me in a space recently, like, once again, I have my options because I am pansexual. But it's made me realize how out of all of my options, it makes me feel like, generally, men, if we're talking about their own individual pools, I'm pretty sure they're all contaminated in their own way, you know? But it almost made me seem like men have become the bottom tier of all of my options. And only because, and this is not to troll or anything like that, but I've really gotten to a point where it's kind of like, how is it that, for the most part, I've dated men, if we're talking about a ratio, but at the same time, they haven't been able to make me feel seen and like touched in places where other people have made me feel. And I think that's another reason when it comes to like talking about how everything is like so surface level and superficial, because a lot of men have this ideal that their masculinity is tied to their job, how much they make, how they can provide or whatever. But then when it gets to a point where it's so interesting, I'll sit down and try to have just a deep intellectual conversation, and they will react to me like I'm asking for a ring on the first date.
Jeez.
Just because they're unable to meet me,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, mentally, emotionally, in a vulnerable state, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it just gotten to a point where it's kind of like, all right, outside of you trying to have sex, like, what else is there here? And there's never really much beyond that, for the most part. And I feel like that's just more so a majority. And don't get me wrong, I know there are men out there that, you know, they have that depth and they have more to them, but I'm saying generally speaking. Right, and then on the other side of the spectrum, you know, the typical woman is, you know, talk about the BBLs and you know what I'm saying, and that's not saying it to judge, but it's one of those things where we're constantly decorating our representatives and our egos, but we're not doing that internal work. We're trying to be as pretty and you know, appealing on the outside, but we're ugly as hell on the inside, you know, and it kind of makes it hard to even get past that surface level interaction. And I think that's the thing where it's kind of like
it's
truly
frustrating,
annoying and frustrating to me.
Very frustrating.
Yeah, because I don't ask for much. I don't care for the fine dine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
we all like
but what I'm
nice
saying
things,
is that's not the, I need this. I need you to be able to meet me soul to soul and to have conversations and to let loose, like, you know. And it's so interesting that a lot of people are just not even unable to, but just unwilling to for themselves. So it seems like a task to do it for somebody else.
Yeah. Whew. No, that's real. Do people just not understand, or maybe they just don't know, like, the benefits of doing that internal work, or is it like are they just distracted with home work, jobs, bills, family responsibilities, or is it just, do they think it's not important? Like,
I feel like society does a very good job at distracting and misleading us.
Mm-hmm.
So I always go back to that and have a little, grace.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes I've disappointed myself thinking that everybody is just supposed to eventually wake up one day and get it. Because I don't think that everybody is meant to.
No, I don't
when
think
you're
so either.
you're one of the select few, it's kind of one of those things where it's like everybody's not gonna show up like you today, tomorrow, or ever. You're just gonna be the one wolf amongst a whole bunch of sheep.
A whole bunch of them.
And it's kind of one of those things where it's up to you to find other wolves. You know what I'm saying?
And it's like not even to prey on the sheep, but just to be amongst wolves. Mm-hmm. And because I've seen that too, where it's like men and women who become a little more conscious, they become a little more aware, but then they prey on those that aren't as aware.
No, of course,
of course.
But then
I've been guilty of that as well.
No, yeah, and it's crazy because it's one of those things where it's like when we talk about doing the internal work, that I was misled to one point in the beginning where I thought that you were supposed to kill your ego. You never kill the ego. You're always gonna have the bad wolf and the good wolf. You're always gonna have the devil. They live together. And it's so crazy because
yin yang.
It's so crazy. No, because we were talking about music the other day, and I think they said that they were out. My friend said that they were out and they heard like a mashup between two songs, and it was My Neck, My Back with Revolution, and I'm like, yo, that's like a audio representation of your angel and your devil. Like,
wait, not the Kirk Franklin.
Yes, they was like, yo, that's the craziest mashup I've ever heard at the club. But I'm like, yo, if you think about it, that's how you're supposed to allow your ego and your soul to come together and to find that perfect, alchemy between the two.
Yeah, that balance point. Yo, like that yin yang relationship. Yo, I love yin yang relationships nowadays.
Yeah, it's such an intricate dance.
It really is, because it's like you can't have one without the other.
Exactly.
And even in the symbol of the yin yang symbols, like in the white portion, there's the black dot. It's like from light and dark, good and evil, all of it contains each other.
Yeah, and even if you look at it from the wolf's perspective, from that folktale, it's you that has to be, because the devil's gonna be around. Angels are gonna be around. Whatever. Both forces are always gonna live. You can't get rid of that. But it's which wolf are you feeding? And we have our moments where you can consciously want to be feeding the good wolf until you get triggered into like glitching and kind of like falling into the opposite side. So like I said, it's a constant intricate dance between what's the healthiest way, or what's the highest thing for you.
I think sometimes we need ego in the moment. Like, it's more beneficial to serve the ego.
I actually got a reading, and her main message was, you need to get into your ego more. I was like, oh dang.
That's the type of energy where it's just like, yo, stop being humble.
You're a little too humble. You're
stop being humble.
Yeah, like you need to show out a little more. Like,
dead ass, because motherfuckers, they done forgot, or they don't think.
And once again, that keeps you protected. That keeps you, so.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things that I learned recently about like not killing the ego. Like, yo, just learning the place.
What was a specific situation that made you like?
I've had a couple stop being so humble moments in the past couple.
But which one was the one that really made you realize like it's not about killing the ego?
It's not about killing the ego. You gotta give me a quick second. That's a great. That's a beautiful question.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a very big key.
Yeah.
So
it's like, I don't think it was one thing. I think it was just me kind of just reflecting on what's the purpose of the ego. Like, what's the role? And I know for a fact, like, me coming from a very Christian religious upbringing, like the God and the devil, they're always pit as eternal enemies kind of thing. But then just me, I remember I even had like a shroom trip one time where it's like, I'm
That'll
thinking.
Do it.
Facts. And it's like, yo, just kind of going through the timeline of the creation of the entity that's like the devil, that represents that devil, but then like, yo, just how that entity navigated through life,
Right.
in the spiritual sense. And it was like, it's not something that's just inherently evil. It might just see things in a certain perspective and thinks that this is the best way to go about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And like on that shroom trip, I was just thinking like, yo, why does this entity, the devil, like just is so like abrasive, combative, you know what I'm saying, in that space? And it's like, to me, it hit me like, yo, he's just scared. Because being out in life, in the world, that's some scary shit. But then it's like, at the same time, it didn't want to just be like a slave to what the higher self said, because it knows its own value inherently. And so that battle isn't just like, okay, now there's beef. It's just, we just see things in different perspectives. And so that kind of made like a foundation for me to just start thinking about, yo, if the devil, the enemy, the lower self, the ego and stuff, like these are, to me, interchangeable terms in as far as what they represent, then it's like, it's not something that's inherently evil in me. And I had to break it down from a simple to like really simplify it and be like, yo, me moving out of my ego or acting in my ego is just like, yo, just the surface level. If I'm upset about something, that's ego right there. Right. Because ego's telling me, yo, this is not cool about me. Like, it's protecting me. And so I recognize that another thing that kind of helped me get into that space was just like understanding that I can't save everybody. Like, I've got to let ego protect me.
Right.
Because if I move too much in the collective space, then I'm going to sacrifice too much of myself. Right. And so those kind of like over time, like little by little, it was just like, yo, it's not about killing this ego or the death or all that stuff. Even in like I've been doing a lot of reading on the chakras a lot more lately. And just the terminologies, higher self and lower self. Like when I first heard it, I thought it was a hierarchy where it was just like, okay, the higher self is higher, the lower self is lower. So the higher self is better. But learning about the chakras, it was like the lower self is just literally just the placement of those lower chakras. It's not something that's lower in value or lower in the hierarchy. It's just, it embodies those different spaces. Right. You know, being from the root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, that's where it stays because it's all about I. And then understanding that the higher self, going from the crown to the third eye to the throat, that's like the collective space, and then it all joins in the heart. Right. And it's like, yo, that's so like just understanding that was just like, wow, it's not lower as in you have lower value. It's just you embody something different. Right. And just in the placement of the chakra structure, it just happens to be those lower chakras. So that was like a huge like, wow, that's crazy kind of thing. And that shit happened like 2 weeks ago. Oh, for real. Like that specific kind of like breakdown of the higher self, lower self. I was like, wow, that's powerful.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, that was dope.
I think it's interesting because a lot of my breakthroughs when it comes to that have been like either like setting boundaries or just defining what something is for myself as opposed to what society was telling me that it was supposed to look like. So if we go back into femininity, I think I spoke on my page the other day about, you know, the Madonna whore complex and how that ideal is another thing when it comes to how women show up or express themselves. What's right, what's wrong? Am I wrong for, you know, exposing myself in a certain way? And literally, I just had to explore and decide that for myself. And I feel like that in itself is, you know, playing with my ego a little bit and allowing myself to explore things. Because just even, I like to believe that, I think it's so interesting because I feel like you can understand where I'm coming from being a Libra, where like life will take us through extremes along the spectrum to even help us understand what that equilibrium, like what that balance is. So I've tried to be super humble and reserved and whatever the case may be. And then being pushed towards exploring the opposite side of the spectrum is like, but who told me this was bad? And who told me that women aren't supposed to be expressing themselves in this way? You know what I'm saying? And it kind of also ties into what I do spiritually as far as like giving readings and dabbling in the occult. Who said that was wrong and that was bad? Who told us that was, you know what I mean? So it really,
yeah. When you're done, I want to make
go ahead.
segue, because this brings me full circle moment back to a very early interaction that we had when we first started talking. And I remember, and I've told this story to people before because I think it's a beautiful thing.
Okay, cool.
Like, you had on your Instagram bio, bruja. Me understanding what the term meant on a surface level, I'm like, okay, that means witch. Does that mean she's a witch? But it's like everything she posts is always fulfilling. It's enriching. It's uplifting. It's empowering. It doesn't make sense. How can someone call themselves a bruja, per my understanding at that time of what it was, but then give off all of this positive energy, all this love? In my definition, it didn't make sense. And that I remember I hit you up and I asked you, I was like, yo, like, what does that mean for you? And you gave me the breakdown, and it's like, yo, just really giving me an understanding of what it was. Not on the socially conditioned kind of definition, but just what it really meant in the simplest terms, like within self, within the home, how that worked and stuff.
That's
like
crazy, because that's another full circle moment. I remember reposting somebody's, was it a tweet or a post, and it said they didn't burn witches, they burnt women. And what is the divine feminine? To be receptive, intuitive, creative, you know? So it's crazy how it's just using that term in itself is just a rebellious act. Because it was like my trip to Colombia that really made me realize, like, yo, these are your ancestors. This is what you're here to do. This is the message that we're trying to give you. When I went to Cartagena, Colombia, that was really where I realized, and mind you, I was sent there. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't my plan. My dad actually just told me, like, in 2 days you're flying out, pack your bags.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, like, it was a divine situation where I was like, okay, whatever. And then once I started to explore the city, the entire city represented the Spanish Inquisition, and that was basically, if not one of the first places, but the first place where they started, you know, stealing tarot cards and things from witches and killing them at the stakes and burning them and stuff like that. Literally all of the city's history is surrounded on that whole thing.
Wow.
So it kind of made me realize, because it's crazy, like, it's coming from a place where when I watch my grandmothers, like, doing things, like, their own versions of, like, readings or helping other people, it was one of those things where, like, nobody talked about it. It was done in the kitchen real quick, send them on their way, whatever. So now that it's, like, this thing where everybody's into tarot and astrology and we're out in the, it's still kind of weird to me.
Really?
Yeah, it's still, like, one of those things where it's kind of like, wait, no, hold up. We were told to, like, protect the energy and to be very, like, about it, but literally that in itself was another thing that helped for me to understand what it was to be feminine, or what the feminine energy really represented. Being in touch with the moon cycles and being in touch with Mother Gaia, which aka Mother Nature, and using plants and all of the things that we were given, you know, to your disposal, and not in ways to, you know, mess up somebody else's life or, you know, and impede on somebody else's free will, but literally to just come together with the universe and the world around you. So it's another interesting thing within itself. But like I said, a lot of the things that I'm into has put me in, like, many places of having, like, cognitive dissonance when it comes to, okay, what am I doing? Is what I'm doing right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's a very interesting thing to be, but it definitely all comes back to what it is to be feminine or to utilize feminine energy.
That's interesting, because now I'm trying to think if me kind of getting into these things as well is an expression of my feminine energy in a new way that, you know, I haven't had before, because again, coming from strict religious upbringing, a lot, even astrology frowned upon. Frowned upon.
It's wrong. We shouldn't be, you know, thinking for those terms.
But then it's so crazy, because now, one, you look outside, everybody knows their sign now. Apparently, that's a new thing. That actually bothers me, but we gonna come back around to that. but me, one thing I'm glad I didn't do was throw away like the Bible. Honestly, I still study, and I still, because I love reading and I love learning. And there's a lot of deep magic in the Bible, real rap. And it's like even just the simplest example of like, yo, when Jesus was born, the three kings following the North Star to see to that location. That's astrology in a very simple space. And it's like, yo, how is it that these things are right in our face, but then now we've been pulled away from them? Like, it makes, and then that's what helped me dive into the history. Like, yo, what was the purpose behind certain things, and what were they with the witch trials?
You know what
and
makes
all
me,
of that stuff?
it makes me curious because I feel like, so we grew up a little more on opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to that. So where do you feel like, okay, so because we understand how, depending on where we're talking about, you know, they come take over your entire culture, whatever the case may be, and they feed certain things to you. This is what we're now believing in. This is what we're now following. In what ways do you feel like either divine feminine or masculine or even coming together as a dynamic? Is it one of those things where it's helped to empower? Does it kind of block? Like, how does that work? Because I've really never sat down and read the Bible. So it's like just knowing what the history is based off of my perspective from going on the trip. So on your side of the spectrum, you've read the Bible, you've grown up, or whatever the case may be. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel like it suppresses what it is to be the divine feminine? Do you feel like,
as far the way we've taught it, I think the text itself.
So it's not the book, it's the way that it's taught.
Not the book.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely not the book. Because when I read the book for myself, I'm just like, it's not that complicated to me. Like, it seems like very simple stuff. And then when you go deeper, of course, like that's when it ties into different types of teachings and understandings. And there's always been a link. But I think knowing the history, it's been the way that has been taught, because it specifically demonizes certain things and then completely omits other things.
Right.
So it's just like, you know, and there's this even this idea that you can't determine it for yourself. Like, you can't, you're not supposed to interpret it and read the Bible or whatever. And I learned, like, through researching that was something the Catholic Church did like generations ago. Like, they came up with a whole panel. They made laws, and it said, like, yo, no one else can interpret these texts other than us.
That's the problem.
And exactly. And so for me, recognizing, damn, they did that shit way back then. And it's just been recycling all the way till today, to where some people can't actually sit down and read and understand it. They need somebody to translate it for them.
Or it's already part of their program.
Or it's exactly. And it's like, damn. So it definitely suppressed, like the way it was taught, definitely suppress it. But I found reading the text itself empowering, me personally. I found that very, very empowering. And it was, honestly, it sounds like an oxymoron or controversial, but it was reading the Bible more for myself that pushed me away from the religion aspect of it. Real rap. Like, I started reading and just letting it resonate with me however it resonated in my own way. And I'm just like, yo, we doing something wrong.
You know, it's crazy because, I mean, I've seen people around me, like family members and stuff like that, who, you know, were religious, whatever the case may be, but it was always like loosely for the most part, as opposed to like my grandmother. Rest in peace, gang. You know, I'm like, ancestors, shit, you gotta still tap in with your ancestors. That was just sidebar.
They don't leave us.
You know what I'm saying? But she hopped around from a lot of religions while I was small. Like, she was Christian, she was Pentecostal, she became Mormon, and I was sitting here like, Grandma, what is going on? You know? So I think a lot of that caused me to start off being agnostic at first, and then I kind of just stumbled into spirituality because it was more so one of those things where I guess spirituality allows for you to figure it all out on your own terms, you know. I think that's another reason why a lot of us have kind of like dabbled on that side, you know. But for sure, I think you can learn something from everybody as long as you're willing to have that open-minded perspective.
No, that's a fact. And I love that you bring up how spirituality is all about figuring it out on your own.
As opposed to going with whatever you've been taught or told.
Whatever you've been taught.
I was never comfortable with that. And one thing that I was always told, especially like by my uncle, shout out to him, he's always like, I don't care what nobody tells you, always cross-check and always question shit, you know? And I think that was a very big thing that has become a part of me that has allowed me to even get to this point.
And it's like, that was one of those crazy things that, like, in the it says that in the text.
It does.
It says to question things. It says to build that personal
but they pick and choose
relation.
Like,
and it's like, okay, this is what it means. And so I see the finessing, but it's just like, dang, like, if people, and that's another curse that I think is like, given we're in the age of Aquarius, the age of information, where people can get information at their fingertips, we still keep looking for a buffer.
Yeah.
You need some doctor to tell you why to take the COVID vaccine. I'm just throwing that out. I'm not trying to start a riot. But it's like you need someone with scientific evidence to tell you that you are depressed.
Yeah.
There's always a buffer. When are you checking in with yourself?
Yes. And we've never been taught that.
We've never been taught that.
But that's the thing. So it's so crazy because, you know, a lot of people, I can remember the transition going from people not really talking about spirituality or readings or diving into the occult to now.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, there's a bunch of people that, oh, you know, I'm kind of interested in getting a reading, but I don't know.
Yeah,
do you think I can?
Yeah.
Like, there's like that back and forth mentally. That it's still to this day.
Oh, of course.
That everybody goes through, and it's kind of like, wait, think about it. They took nature, like what you were taught about nature and the benefits and how it's not only medicine, but you can use it for so many different things. But how is that demonic?
Because we don't see nature as part of the spiritual. As far as the way I know I've been taught.
Yeah.
I ain't never been in the woods to have a prayer.
But what I'm saying is,
But
have you ever sat down and thought about it? You're waiting for somebody to give you pharmaceuticals when there's a tree or an herb or something that can help you turn it right around.
Ready for you.
You don't even use your fingers to Google. At all. But you can find any other bit of information that you're looking for. Yeah.
Easy. And that's why it's so crazy that we're in the age of information now, because it's like so few people actually use the age for what it is. And it's only those select chosen, I feel like they are, that, I have this information right here, whether it's within me, whether it's on the computer, whether it's tapping in with the ancestors, it's all around. So I can easily tap in through whatever medium just feels comfortable at that point. Exactly. But it's so rare that people actually put that intention into discovering. That's like, it's really crazy. And like, just going back to nature, like I'm looking at the traffic right now. It's backed up. Everybody going into the city. Where's the nature out there? And it's like that in itself, reading into the history, is all orchestrated. You know what I'm saying?
Chopping down trees, building up
buildings, and pushing everybody into that area. Because when you keep people away from the trees, and when you keep people away from nature, people don't connect with nature. Right. And that's God right there. Right. Like, to me, that's.
And I think. Personally for me, it's always been a struggle for me to personify my higher power. You know, because you always hear of Jesus or God or like masculine figures, whatever the case may be. But once again, duality. What is a man without a woman? What is a seed without fertile soil? You know what I mean? And I feel like honoring nature, Mother Gaia, whatever you want to call it, is essential when it comes to whatever forces you claim you believe in. You know what I'm saying? It's a major part of that too. So, that's over time, literally building my own relationship with nature and the world around me is a major part of it. I get my channeling or my messages. Sometimes I'm just sitting chilling, and the wind blows through the trees, and I hear a message.
And you hear
you
a
know what I'm
message.
saying?
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like the fact that if you're distracted and you hear the honking of the horns and the police sirens and stuff like that, you're missing out on so many signs and symbolisms, like on a daily basis. When she's there, forgiving and empathetic and compassionate about the fact that you probably been avoiding for her for who knows how long, but she's constantly there for you every time you wake up, you know? So let's not forget that.
Can't forget that. And that's interesting because like you speaking about how you struggle to personify, you know, the higher power. Like I found myself shifting the way I personify the higher power, giving intentional honor to the mother.
Right.
I say God the mother, God the Father, Mother Nature,
I
Father
say
Time.
Too.
You know
but
what I'm
how they make it
saying?
seem like it's only just one person. It's like Father God, Father Sky,
yeah,
Mother
it's
Earth.
like-
You know, like so
So-
that's how I've been going about that too.
Yeah, I've been noticing that as well because like that divine feminine, it's present, it's needed, it's so powerful and instrumental to the entire structure. We've been so conditioned to let go. I was like, yo, it would be a curse on me to not give honor to that.
Yeah, for sure.
For real. And especially like I love being in nature.
Yeah,
anyway,
it kind of like we're at the point where even when you talk to somebody about like eating healthy or whatever the case may be and just incorporating more herbs and vegetables and stuff like that, people are like, is that even healthy? What is going on here?
See that, and that's the interesting thing about the age of information is like there's so much information.
But be careful with the
misinformation
information.
is just as easy to come across. And that's where I think a lot of people get tripped up as well. Where it's just like, it's too easy to find misinformation because everything is out there.
And just because somebody has a degree in medicine, that does not mean that they know all about what's healthy for you.
Most of the degree, I'm not gonna get into it. If you got a degree in medicine, I'm proud.
That'll be another podcast.
I don't want to shame nobody. I don't want to say.
And it's definitely not to shame anyone, but like I said, no matter who you are, what field you're in, I suggest you cross-check the information that's been given to you.
Absolutely.
And that's that.
And there's that.
Not to take away anything from anybody.
For real. And see the motive behind the education itself. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, I was never a huge history kid.
Really?
Like, I really wasn't. But, like, these past couple years, like, ever since I left my job, that was one of the first things I drew myself to naturally. It was just like, yo, just learning history, studying the paper trail. That's something that I am very much intentional about, following the paper trail.
Right.
Because I think there's a paper trail for everything.
But look at what they're choosing to feed to us when it comes to history.
Exactly.
It's
And that's part of the paper trail, too.
Right.
Like, it's crazy how...
But a very small bit of the paper trail. Because I feel like I've learned so much from just social media alone. Like other people choosing to tell us far beyond what we've been taught. Like, oh, I didn't know that happened.
And then you go Google the shit and you be like, oh shit, they
all
right.
I had to do was Google it, but how do you know to Google it if it's never been like
exactly
you've never been exposed to it?
Exactly. Jeez.
For sure.
So much. So what new projects you got working on, if anything, or what new ventures have you been feeling to dabble in?
That's an interesting question to ask me because I've been in that space and not telling nobody. Nothing.
Oh, you got to keep it on the lock and key.
Yeah, it's one of those. Like you'll see it when it happens.
Okay.
Like it's one of those.
Hey, so in that, so make sure y'all follow her on IG or wherever so that you can see it when it hits. Yeah. Because we want to support.
There's a lot of transforming and transitioning.
Really?
For sure.
Nice. How has the lock journey been?
The lock journey has been very interesting, just on many levels. There was a part of me that felt like, even with my curly hair journey, it was interesting in itself. Being Dominican, when I was younger, you know, having other Dominicans outside of me, not even realizing, because this is before curly hair even became a thing, you know? Like, I would have other Hispanic people talking about me, calling me Michael Jackson and stuff like that. All types of stuff. Look at this girl with this big ass fro, whatever. So now, having my experience with that and jumping into like a whole new ball game, the rules are not the same as far as hair care. People receive me in a completely different way. I feel like I was fetishized for my big curly hair at some point, you know, because everybody like the light skin with me, you know what I'm saying? I have stories behind that.
Yeah.
And it was a part of myself that was just tired of looking the same my entire life and wanted to just step away from that. So when I locked my hair, it was, for the most part, a vow to myself to stop being 1 foot in, 1 foot out of things and being completely locked in 10 toes down. So even outside of my lock journey, the journey has been very interesting because now it's a daily reminder when I look at myself in the mirror to hold myself accountable and keep those commitments to myself that I put, you know.
That's fire. That's fire. Oh shit, I like that.
A lot of times, initially, you know, people, why you lock your hair? First of all, when I first started embracing my fro, why you don't straighten it? Like everybody's always gonna have a thing. Now that I'm locking why didn't you keep the curls? You know, so it's kind of one of those things where it's like it's not about what you want to see. You know, I've done all that already. If you want to see me with straight hair, there's a picture on IG. Go refer to that. You know.
There you go. You got the reference.
Yeah.
You can go see that.
And there's a lot of grace and patience that comes with the process in itself. You know. So very, very interesting.
That's very dope. I love hearing that because I can definitely empathize with my own hair journey. Like coming from a space where I started to grow my hair out, as opposed to always keeping it low, and that was. Like in reflecting, like that was a thing where it's like, yo, I've always been doing life the same way over and over and over. And it got to a point where it was just like, yo, I just want to be different and just kind of just let things be. Like, let's see how it happens. Let's see what happens if I let it.
Two things. Do you have a specific goal in mind or you just like letting it rock?
At this point now, I don't have a goal. I'm letting it rock. When I first started, I did. It was more of a fashion kind of sense, and I went through my own journey with that as far as like, you know, my hair not growing the way I wanted it to be, and like, yo, even you can swing those, please.
I got you.
But like there was even a point in time where it was like, you know, my hair was thinning and balding and stuff like that, and it was honestly a very spiritual reflection of myself. And I had to stop and really recognize what are the little things that I'm doing to myself day to day, and are they helping me grow? Because for me, that was where I recognized the fault was in, like, I'm doing little things incorrectly to my hair, and it's reflecting in my hair. So in the same way, I'm doing little things in myself that's not beneficial to me, and it's showed in the situations that I was getting myself into. And that's why now I'm just like, you know, I'm at a much like peaceful, detached kind of space where it's just like, yo, I'm just letting it do whatever. And I feel like I'm living that right now too. Like I'm at that space in life where it's just like, I got all the faith in the world, I got all the love in the world, and I don't gotta stress. All I gotta do is just embody that, and then just let things happen. You know what I'm saying? So that was how that hair journey kind of.
You also have people like responding to it, like, yo, what you doing to you?
Oh, all the time, and especially when it was looking crazy. I'm not gonna lie, like it was just like, yo, bro, what? But it was weird because
don't worry about it, sweetheart.
And that's one of the things that I'm like, through growing my hair out a couple times, like, cause I've cut it recently, clearly. It was like in this stage, like where it's kind of at, like right now, it doesn't look pretty, but that's the growing. It's like when you're going through that growing process, and every time I grew my hair out, it was just like same thing. It's just like it don't look pretty, but you gotta get through that to get to where you want to see it.
That's when the patience and all of that comes into play, and like nurturing. Yeah. Even outside of that, you know, in a lot of cultures, long, healthy hair is tied to femininity too. Whatever the case may be. And I don't think somebody has to have the longest hair, but there's something about when you see somebody with nice, healthy hair where you're just like, wait, hold up, blah, blah, and it draws you to it. But I think the hair journey, and do you have plants?
I don't.
They don't? Yeah, I feel like those two journeys go like hand in hand, because you realize the same day that you plant the seed is not, what do they say? Right. So just having patience with that, and then a lot of times I'll notice like when my plants are looking a little You know what I'm saying? I'm also a little, because I'm forgetting that constant, like I said, it goes back to like the commitments that you made to and the constant nurturing, remembering to moisturize, and to spray it, and like I said, it's a cook. I mastered everything curly hair, and now locking my hair is like, oh, you want to learn from scratch. This is not the same, you know? So
that's
it's
beautiful.
just learning my hair all over again when I thought I had it all figured out.
And that's a beautiful space to be in, I feel like, just whether it be hair or whether it be expanded into life, just being comfortable with that like ground zero. Like the phoenix is a huge spiritual animal for me. I love the fucking phoenix, like, and it's just being comfortable with being in the ashes and then just knowing that the life is coming back full circle.
I find the beauty in the breakthrough.
Yeah.
You look a little dusty at first.
Yeah, you're gonna look a little dusty. You gotta clean yourself off after, but
yeah, for sure.
Nah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And this conversation has been beautiful. The time, the space,
I needed this,
the energy has been beautiful for real.
Always.
Yeah, so I definitely want to thank you again just for blessing me, blessing us with your energy, with the grace.
Nah, thank you for me, for sure.
Of course. The invitation is always open. You know what I'm saying? We always gonna chop it up.
Libras link.
Of course.
You need that.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
essential.
We gonna write that down.
That's a hashtag.
We gonna write that down. But we've been going for a little time, so I know we gave the people a lot of good stuff. So we gonna let them chew on it. We gonna let them go home. We gonna let them sit on it and bask in that beautiful energy that we know that y'all all have.
And definitely give us some feedback.
Oh yeah, please do.
And
hit that.
For future,
yes, for real. If you got comments, if you got questions, drop them all in the comment section below. You know what I'm saying? Reach out to us on Instagram. You can.
You want to learn how to pole dance? You get tarot reading.
Oh yeah, she
lashes done.
got you covered. She got you covered.
Locked and loaded. It's all in the back trunk. He's seen it too.
Ready to go. Yeah, I'm a believer. I'm a believer. So again, I just want to thank you. I want to give you your flowers.
Thank you.
While you're here. Dope soul.
Takes one to know one.
Appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody that took the time to tune in just to chop it up with us. Thoughts of an Empath podcast. There's so much more to come, and we can't wait to bring it out. So I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. I hope y'all have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day.